we're about 2 weeks away from the start of training camp, so, might as well just get more rumors started, right? Well, suddenly there's this whole rumor going around that the Bulls could potentially be in on Damian Lillard and get in on the sweepstakes. I'm not too sure about that, but I want to make this whole video breaking this whole rumor down. We got more information about it today. Let's talk about it, break it all down together. I'm going to give my own thoughts on this whole topic. I want to talk about, is this actually a possibility for this Bulls team? Does it actually make sense? And if the Bulls aren't going to be trading for Lillard, could they actually just get in on the massive trade of Lillard going to said team? But before we get into it, I'll make sure you hit the like button if you're new to the channel. Hit that subscribe button. Let's get into it. I know I haven't made a video in a while, so why not come back to this, right? This all started because there was a guy that works for, I think, Philly or something like that. Kyle Neubeck just randomly dropped this bomb saying that the Bulls are like a sneaky team that could get in on the Lillard sweepstakes. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, okay, that's just absolutely false, and there's no way the Bulls are getting in on this. And then he talked about, possibility of moving Zach LaVine, which makes a lot of sense. Just to put it out there, the only way that the Bulls get Damian Lillard is if Zach LaVine is somehow involved in the trade. Now, I don't think Portland would take Zach LaVine in return, but that means the Bulls would have to send Zach LaVine to a third team or do a separate trade to get the assets to then trade for Lillard, which even then, I'm just going to go ahead and say, I don't even think it's even much of a possibility. But let's just talk about this hypothetical. So this gets dropped, okay? Now, I don't know who Kyle Neubeck is. This is the first time I've ever heard his name. Don't disrespect, but I don't really trust him. And then, some other reporter from Phoenix kind of says something similar, saying, hey, Lillard trade is imminent. The Bulls could be in it. Zach LaVine could be also part of this deal, which again makes a lot of sense. So then I'm just thinking to myself, okay, this is just all stuff just for engagement. We're almost to the start of the season. Everyone wants their clicks. But then we get this from Woj today, that there is no trade imminent for Damian Lillard, but then he suddenly just kind of puts this little thing in where he says that the talks about around Lillard have actually started heating up again. But the thing that's most surprising is that the Miami Heat are not a part of these talks. Now, this could change, as he said, very quickly, but right now he is saying that there are other teams actually trying to get Lillard that are not named the Miami Heat, okay? So now that Woj actually reported on this, now I'm actually starting to think that there's actually smoke, okay? This, again, comes out today. This did not come out yesterday when Kyle Neubeck dropped this, right? So Woj finally actually brings this up and starts talking about it. And so I'm like, okay, now it's worth actually starting to discuss, because who could these teams be that are in on the Lillard sweepstakes and could actually be worth trying to figure out, like, can they make this deal happen? So again, Neubeck dropped the Bulls, so now we're talking about the Bulls. So the funny thing after Woj drops this is that Jake Fisher from Yahoo drops this thing and says that the Bulls are involved. So it sounds like, and look, I trust Jake Fisher at this point. It does sound like the Bulls are actually trying to get Lillard here. The thing is, though, is that obviously the Trailblazers would not want Zach LaVine because it doesn't fit into the rebuilding timeline. And it also seems like with LaVine, his value isn't as big around the league right now, which honestly it makes a lot of sense to me, in my opinion, which is the reason why I've said consistently that I think the Bulls, their best bet is just to keep Zach right now, because I think that's going to actually give them their most value. But right now it seems like Zach's value isn't too much, so if the Bulls were to trade out Zach, then that means that they're not going to actually get much in return. Therefore, does that actually make them sweepstakes in the Lillard, or sorry, a part of the Lillard sweepstakes? Probably not. So it doesn't really make too much sense. So again, this is the article by Jake Fisher. He also mentions that the Raptors could be in on it, which I think is actually more intriguing for the Blazers if they're willing to give up Scotty Barnes or OG Anunoby, etc., etc. It doesn't seem like they're actually willing to give up Barnes, so that just makes this even more interesting. But in the end, the biggest thing is that the Heat are not in on us, I guess, for now. So again, Jake Fisher, you want to read all about it, it's all right here. Teams are calling about Lillard, which makes a lot of sense. We're almost to the training camp, and this needs to get resolved somehow. And it would make sense that teams are trying to make that call, and Portland's probably also making some calls. So let's just do this hypothetical, okay? Maybe the Bulls actually have a chance at Lillard here. The Miami Heat do not want to spend all their assets to get in on Lillard, all right? I'm just going to straight up tell you right now, I don't think this is very much a possibility. I don't think the Bulls have the assets. They don't have the firepower to compete with some of the other teams. Now, the other thing too to keep in mind is that it's been very clear that Lillard wants to go to the Heat. So trading for Lillard, if you're not named the Miami Heat, actually sounds like a really big risk, because he could just be like, I'm not going to play. I want to be traded to Miami Heat now. So you just give up a bunch of assets for basically nothing. So in the end, it's probably not even worth it for the Bulls to even consider because of that. But let's just take that out. Let's just take this whole, like, he only wants to play for the Miami Heat out of the equation here, okay? And let's talk about some of the possibilities, okay? One of the things that I've been kind of thinking about is, like, okay, if the Bulls were to actually get on the Lillard sweepstakes, and for some reason, if the Bulls are going to get in on the Lillard sweepstakes, Zach LaVine has to be part of this deal, number one, okay? I keep seeing people say put in DeRozan. DeRozan's value is not as high as Zach's, and even if Zach's value is considered low right now, it's not as high as Zach's. And I don't even want to have to explain why this is the case, but for some reason, people still think that DeRozan's value is higher. It's not, okay? A guy that's older on a one-year contract, people are not going to be willing to give up assets, future assets, for a dude that's on an expiring deal, okay? Especially because he's older. Zach, on the other hand, he's younger. He is also on a 4-year contract, or guaranteed 3 years, and he's also part of a player that's more modern, right? That itself is just tremendously more value, even with the contract involved, right? Zach LaVine's contract each year, his percentage of the cap actually goes down every single season from here on out. So in the end, his contract is, if you're going to be worried about the contract, the only year you have to worry about is this year, okay? If you're going to take on the contract right now, it literally goes down percentage wise of the cap every single year from here on out. So his salary basically means nothing. All right, I don't know why people don't understand that, but I put up this whole idea. I'm thinking, okay, would I trade Zach LaVine, Patrick Williams, and Dalen Terry, which, by the way, it works, okay, money wise, this works, for Damian Lillard? And just taking, maybe it's Zach gets traded somewhere else to get some other assets, but if this was like, the kind of like the bare bones of the trade, right? Would I give up LaVine, Williams, and Dalen Terry for Damian Lillard? And the answer is yes, in my opinion. I think that if this was offered to the Bulls, they would 100% take this, and I'm all for it. As a big of a Zach LaVine fan as I am, I understand that Lillard is an MVP caliber player. Even though that he is older right now, I still think he's an MVP caliber player, and he is better than Zach LaVine. I am also willing to give up Patrick Williams for this deal to go through, because I don't think if the Bulls are ever going to get Lillard, Patrick Williams is 100% in this deal, okay? I keep seeing people put in on Twitter like, oh no, we keep Williams though. Like, Williams doesn't go to, isn't traded. And I'm telling you right now, if the Bulls ever have a shot at getting Damian Lillard, Portland wants Williams, okay? Patrick Williams is 110% going in this sort of deal. So would I do this deal of giving up LaVine and then these two young players? Yeah, I do it, right? I'm also assuming that there's picks involved in this. I would still also do it. Now, if we start talking about adding Kobe White, adding Ayo Dosunmu, adding other assets, right? That's where I get more hesitant, because I think of a team of Lillard, DeRozan, and Vooch still need that supporting cast to come together for them to even be a formidable team, right? It makes them a better team, but they still need a supporting cast around them, right? Like the ACs, the Javon Carrs, the Kobe Whites, the Ayo Dosunmus, to help make that team at least, still pretty good, right? Just having Lillard, DeRozan, Vooch, and no supporting cast basically means nothing, right? So I'm willing to give up all of this plus some picks to get Lillard. So I kind of just put this deal together. So kind of put it in another perspective here. If the Bulls were to trade some of their picks away, which I'd be willing to go with 3 first-round picks, this pick right here is going to Portland, right? Or it's already from Portland. It would just go back to Portland, okay? The Bulls then have the 2027 and 2029 first-round picks they could trade. I'd be willing to throw that in too. It is a risk, right? But again, taking out of the equation of Lillard only wants to go to Miami, let's say he actually accepts going to the Bulls, then I would 100% do this deal. The thing is, though, is I don't think Portland accepts this. There's, like, in my head, Portland does not take this, obviously, because Zach, they're not going to take Zach because he doesn't fit in their timeline. And then even if the Bulls trade Zach for future assets, I still don't think it's going to be enough, because I think teams have more to offer Portland that would be more valuable to them than what maybe the Bulls could just kind of fester up on a Zach LaVine sort of, trade for future assets deal, right? Like flip assets with whatever you get from Zach. So that's just, at least in my head, what I'm thinking. I think, yeah, if this was offered to the Bulls, take it. 100% take it. You 100% take this a million times out of a million. But I don't think this is going to be the offer for the Bulls, obviously. So in the end, it's probably too much for the Bulls to give up. If you're wondering, again, just kind of like the pick situation, here's the pick situation for the Bulls would be left over. They would still have the 2024 first rounder, their own 2026 first rounder, same thing with 2028, and then 2030, they still have their first rounder. They would still then, in at least in this scenario, they'd have Kobe White, they would have Ayo Dosunmu, right? And then they would have Torrey Craig, Javon Carter, Alex Caruso as like the main, supporting cast players. Julian Phillips would still be here, and then the Bulls would still be able to draft some guys with some assets kind of left over, right, to help make this team hopefully then be a contender, right? But that's the reason why I'm saying that if I have to add Kobe White, if I have to add Ayo Dosunmu as well as what I have drawn up here, then to me it's too much, because then the Bulls don't have a supporting cast or any assets left over to be working with after the deal is done. Mark MK Hoops on Twitter's put up this right here. He briefly said that there was a 42% no. If this was offered to the Bulls would immediately say yes and not look back. This is 100% yes. You take this offer if you're the Bulls 100 times out of 100. I don't know why people even say no to this. I understand people want DeRozan in this instead of LaVine, and so do I. I think that a team of Lillard and LaVine could be like one of the top offenses in the league and have actually a ceiling of like getting to the conference finals, right? If you have the right supporting cast around them. I think a team of Lillard, DeRozan, Vucevic can probably be a 50-win team and probably is a second round exit. So I understand, right? I would love to have Lillard and LaVine here, but if you're gonna get Lillard, it has to involve LaVine somehow. That's just straight up facts. You're not gonna get Lillard if you're trading DeMar DeRozan. You're not gonna get him. So this is if the Bulls are gonna be getting Lillard, okay? Which again, I have said that I don't think is a possibility whatsoever. I think that if the Raptors are actually in on it, they have a better shot. I think that Miami Heat also have a better shot because they're not done. They can still trade some of their guys that they're still kind of holding on to right now for other assets, and then package that with their young assets that they have, and then flip it over to Portland, which I think that would be more enticing to them, right? What I actually think is more of a possibility, and I actually think is something that we have to look out for, is that the Bulls are working to get in on the Lillard trade, but they're not obviously getting Damian Lillard. They're just trying to get in on the Lillard trade just to kind of get some assets in return. And what Jake Fisher has been talking about here, Chicago has explored trade scenarios for Zach LaVine throughout this offseason, okay? Which I don't exactly know how to take this. If this means that they're doubling down on DeMar DeRozan and Nikola Vucevic being 1 and 2, then that's malpractice and they should be fired on the spot. Now, if they're trying to trade Zach LaVine to then hopefully try to get a superstar, then you know what? Go ahead and try. I don't know how legit it is, but at least it's a better plan than saying, oh, DeMar DeRozan's our number 1, Vucevic is our number 2, and then we're going to kind of fill it out from there and just be mediocre, and honestly even worse than mediocre in my opinion, because having just those two guys at the helm being the star players is not going to have any sort of success. But I don't really know what AKME are thinking with this, but in my head, it kind of sounds like they're trying to get in on a Lillard deal and trying to trade Zach in the Lillard deal, but not obviously get Lillard. They would just get assets in return. And this is just kind of something I've drawn up in the trade machine here by Fanspo. Look, I'm just kind of doing things on the fly. This is not something that I think could legitimately happen. I'm just saying that like this is just a possibility that kind of popped in my head, because we all know that Lillard wants to go to Miami, but then there's been the rumors of James Harden wanting to go to the Clippers, and then the 76ers would then need to replace James Harden, so then they would go after Zach, right? So the big players here would be Lillard going to the Heat, LaVine going to the 76ers, and then the Clippers get Harden, right? The Trailblazers would then get Tyler Hero, Marcus Morris Sr., Jovic, Preston, and then, a bunch of picks, like a lot more than this right here. I just kind of threw those on, right? They would get like a boatload of more picks here. And honestly, probably more players, but just so the money works in this sort of scenario here on screen, I just kind of threw in this. The Heat would get Lillard and Furkan Korkmaz, and then the Bulls would then go and get like a first-round pick from Philly, and then they would kind of get like some kind dumps to Duncan Robinson. I do think Norman Powell is a pretty solid player that they could potentially flip or just honestly keep. And then Caleb Martin and Amir Coffey are two like kind of youngish players that have some potential left over and some pretty solid wings, in my opinion. So that would kind of be the deal, right? The Bulls, unfortunately, they're trading Zach for basically this, which is not exactly amazing. But I guess in their head, they don't want to pay Zach LaVine the rest of his contract because Jerry Reinsdorf is very, very cheap. And we all know how Jerry Reinsdorf operates. He does not ever give out a massive contract ever. And he gave one out to Zach, and I won't be shocked if Jerry Reinsdorf's telling AKM ME, hey, trade Zach because I don't want to pay him his massive contract, which I think is atrocious by an owner, but you know how things work with this Bulls team and Jerry Reinsdorf. So that's basically just kind of what my thoughts are on this. Again, I don't think that the Bulls are in on Lillard at all. I think that they've tried, and as they should, but I don't think they have the assets whatsoever to pull off a Lillard deal. I think the more legitimate possibility is that the Bulls get in on the Lillard deal that involves Zach, but obviously they would not get Lillard in return. They would just be trading Zach in a 4-5, whatever team trade it is. That could look something like this, right? In the end, though, if the Bulls somehow can pull off what I drew up here, I'm taking this 100%. I would 100% do it. I know it kind of looks like a lot, but hey, I think that Lillard is in that the upper echelon of MVP caliber players. You do this, right? For MVP caliber player who is still locked in for 3 years minimum, right? It's not like he's gonna just leave if this suddenly doesn't work out, right? He still is under contract for multiple years. But again, I don't think Lillard wants to go anywhere but the Miami Heat. So in the end, it's probably not worth it for the Bulls. But I want to hear what you guys' thoughts are on this whole Damian Lillard to the Bulls rumor. I honestly don't think there's anything behind it, but you know what? It ended up being good content for the past 3 days, so I might as well put a video out on it. But as always, make sure you hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys for all support. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.